Jörg-Andreas Krüger, welcome to the forum. I know you've been speaking on a panel today. You are president of NABU, Nature and Biodiversity Conservation Union. You were on the panel talking about the need for systemic change. I mean, the conversation throughout the forum today has been how important systemic change is. What was your voice into the debate today? What did you have to say?
What I want to stress in the discussion is always that we need good cooperation. We need to have conservation constantly, and for that we need to have built up trust again. We see now all the demonstrations, all the protests, we see lots of frustration. People are overwhelmed by the challenges, by the complexity, by the time pressure and all these things. And what we lost in our societies is really the trust and a kind of positive vision. What is the way to the success? And I'm completely convinced that without this trust and without a positive narrative, we can't be successful as a society and not for the transition as well.
How do we get back to that? Because there is real heat and frustration in the debate, as you say.
I mean, as a society, we have two opportunities to set rules. One is with parliaments and elections, and the other is with markets. And from my theory is that you always have to have the politics to set the frame, and in that you have room for maneuver, for innovation, for all these things. And what happened in the past is that politicians, every 4 years, every 6 years, change the direction. If we are talking about transition and we are talking about the ecological crises, then we need some long-term perspective. And at the end, we need a kind of intergenerational contract between all the participants of the discussion, since nobody would go and invest $1 million to change a business case of a farm or of a company with a timeline of 4 years and say, and then after 4 years, somebody is coming up and say, surprise, surprise, we changed our opinion.
So what do we do when we look at elections coming up here in Brussels in June, when we look at the fact that there's been a lot of frustration around the fact that the EU might talk about a strategic dialogue now, but it's at the end of their term. Yeah. These are the realities. So you have the aspirations. How do we meet the two in the middle? Are there concrete steps, and have they been discussed at the forum? What have you heard?
We just started, and we stressed some of the aspects which we should work on after the elections. And the one is, in all of our laws and regulations, farmers are still responsible for producing food, but that's not right anymore. That changed in the past. Now farmers are kind of land managers. They are producing biodiversity. They are mitigation and climate change activities, actions, and so on. And so that's what we have to put in the frame, in the legal frame as well, so that it's recognized. And then we have to organize the money to pay the farmers for. And if you do that in a scheme where you have more than 4 years, more than 6 years, then trust can develop again. And for sure, we have to bring always together the stakeholders to talk to each other. That's what we heard from Professor Strohschneider again this day. We have done that in Germany for 2 years. And we have the complex situation like in all the other European countries at the moment, but we still have discussions between the stakeholders, since there is a network of connections and trust.
So you feel that trust is being rebuilt, and of course the connections and the conversations and the collaborations continue. You're taking part in a Forum for Agriculture event tomorrow from private land conservation. So do you hope for more to further that conversation there?
Yeah, what I expect for tomorrow is that I want to have a discussion with the private landowners. What can we do together to really go in the right direction of nature conservation to preserve biodiversity? I mean, we have the legal obligations, the Natura 2000 network, for example. But we need a kind of green infrastructure to help biodiversity to preserve. We need a kind of backbone in climate change, so species and habitats will move slowly from the south to the north, or from the lower level to the higher level in the mountains. And for that we need kind of corridors for connectivity. And that's something where we need the cooperation with the private landowners. That is not automatically a protected area with many restrictions. You can do many things there, but you have to have the idea and the vision of this green infrastructure. And I want to try to convince people tomorrow really to help us to build that.
Thank you. Well, good luck with those conversations. Thank you, Jörg-Andreas.
Thank you for the questions.